Are werewolves natural creatures? Are they out there in the wild right now, hunting, raising were-pups, digging burrows, and remaining elusive to modern society? Are they only legend, stories, make-believe? Are they unfortunate victims of some sort of curse or an unidentified disease or virus? Or did they willfully enter a pact with dark forces, evil spirits, or the devil himself to receive the ability to shapeshift into wolves and other monstrous forms?
There have been reports of strange creatures in the area.
Witnesses say they couldn't believe what they were seeing.
What is that? Welcome, beloved fofers, doubters, naysayers, non-believers, and skeptics. Welcome to Paranormal Fable or Fact. I am Victor Trevino, joined by my co-host and beautiful wife, Tammy.
We are your humble guides to tales of alleged hoaxes, unbelievable stories, and the overall strange.
Sweet. So we're not going to mention the email and all that because it's in the show notes and it's on our YouTube channel. But
Yes.
it's P-Fable or Fact at proton.me. We also have the Facebook page and, of course, the YouTube. And on the YouTube, hit that notification button if you want our shows to pop up when we post them. And if you want to support the show, the easiest way you can do it is just subscribe. I mean, even if you're not going to listen to all of our shows, you like one show, subscribe. Helps us out.
Yeah.
So let's go right into the rules. Rule number 1. We will never purposefully mislead or report false information ever.
Rule number 2. We are not professional podcasters, broadcasters, or audio editors, so mistakes will happen.
Definitely. Rule number 3. Everyone is entitled to believe what they want and entitled to their own opinions, including us.
Rule number 4. We are offering information and insight as food for thought, not persuasion.
Perfect. Okay, so we're going to move into the gist. This show is called Bedburg's Werewolf. And it is about Peter Stump. Now, and this is probably going to be in actually it is in the red flags. Peter Stump was just one of his names. He had so many different aliases, and I don't know why. Some of those aliases were as follows: Peter Stube, Peter Stumpf, with an F at the end, Abam Griswold, Abel Groswald, and Ubel Griswold.
You couldn't find anything to say why he had aliases?
Don't know. Well, actually I did, but we'll talk about that in the red flags. He was born in Parat, near the town of Bedburg. He was according to some historians, he was a wealthy farmer, but again, I found evidence to oppose that, so that might not necessarily be true, but by most accounts, he was a wealthy farmer and a father of 2 children. He was assumed to have been widowed by his wife at some point in like the 1580s. After his wife passed away, his only son fell victim to what was going on in the area. See, I didn't know, after I started doing my cursory research, there were missing people reports and people being found mutilated, as well as like a lot of livestock. Not just killed and eaten, but just torn to shreds in that area for years. Like, I think it was like 3 or 4 years this was going on. So his own son was one of the victims. The boy disappeared for, most of the day. People went out to look for him, and they found the poor kid in the woods, just half-eaten and torn to shreds.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So people looked at him with sympathy because the poor guy, his wife dies, and then his son gets murdered.
Yeah.
So people are like, oh, poor guy, right?
Yeah, terrible thing.
Nobody suspected him. Nobody looked at him. Nobody blinked an eye. Everybody just kind of left him alone. His age is uncertain due to a lack of records that survived the 30 Years' War, which was in that area, and I think the 30 Years' War ended like in 1585 or something, or 1583, something like that. So, there was a war going on in the area.
Right.
And there's some historians that have, well, I'll go into that later.
Okay.
So they don't know his actual age, but if he was born somewhere around 1530, he would have been in his 50s when all of this happened. After years of this tale surviving only in folklore, in other words, people just heard about it and were like, oh yeah, that's that story that comes out of Germany, kind of like, oh, I don't know, the Pied Piper maybe? Everybody just thought it was a story, it was just a legend.
Yeah.
This occultist named Montague Summers in 1920 found a copy of one of the actual books that was written way back when in the 1500s. And it was called The Most Damnable Life and Death of Stub Peter, which is another alias, Stub, Peter Stub.
Wow.
And I don't remember where he found it. He found it like in some library or something. But this book detailed the heinous crimes and the horrible, brutal execution of Peter Stump, which occurred on October 31st, 1589.
Ooh, Halloween.
Yeah. So now we have facts. It wasn't just a story. Here's documentation, dates, names, places, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So people are like, oh, it's not just a fairy tale. It's not just a legend. Just like we've always said, baby, whenever you hear any kind of legend or myth, 9 times out of 10, it's based on some type of truth.
Right.
However remotely, But then we find out that not only was he executed, his mistress, because remember, he was a widower.
Right.
His mistress, whose name was Catherine Trumpin, and his daughter Sybil, who was, the descriptions I found, she was older than 15. Not much older than 15, so maybe 16 or 17. She was executed as well.
Wow.
All 3 of them were executed. The women, they were all burned. Maybe I shouldn't go into detail, because they were brutally executed, baby.
Okay.
They were all burned, but after Peter's head was severed, they beheaded him. They didn't burn the head, they burned his body, but they placed his head on a spear and stuck it on top of the spear, driven into the ground. And on top of the spear, they put the wheel, which he was broken on, and we'll discuss that a little later.
Okay.
And then on top of the wheel, they put, they said the likeness of a wolf. So I don't know if it was like a doll or like a paper mache wolf or...
Yeah.
Maybe just a wolf skin hanging up there or something, but they put the likeness of a wolf on it as a warning to others. The reason this case is so special, when I started doing my research, it's a very strong possibility that this is actual evidence of shapeshifting, a werewolf, an actual werewolf. Because when I first heard this story way back when, baby, I just thought, serial killer.
Yeah.
Serial killer. This guy went around. And then when you hear about his confession to all this stuff, I transformed into a wolf, 8 brains, let's say, without getting too into detail, and he devoured his victims, I thought, well, he's going to confess to anything. They tortured him.
Yeah.
Right? And we know the medieval tortures, baby, back then.
Right.
How horrible some of them were.
Yeah.
I mean, just unreal that they actually did that to people to get them to confess. But then I found out he confessed practically as soon as he was arrested. In fact, there's evidence that he wanted to turn himself in.
Oh, really?
One of the things is because he had already gotten rid of the belt. He claimed that he had a girdle, what we would call a belt now, that he would put on, and that's what allowed him to transform, which goes along with the original folklore of werewolves, if you know anything about werewolves.
Yeah.
So he wasn't tortured. He just let it all out right when they arrested him.
He just told it all.
He just let it all hang out.
Wow.
And we'll go into that in more detail in the red flags. I was going to go over it in the gist, but I think it's better if we go over it in the red flags. Now, we have a disclaimer for this show.
Okay.
As you can tell, We're going to try to tone down the graphic nature, not only of the murders, because some of them are extremely graphic, but also of the execution, because of the way they were executed. It's just horrible.
Yeah.
You know, just in case any younger listener, we got any little foofers?
Yeah, okay.
So parental guidance is suggested. You know, maybe listen to the show beforehand and, you know, see if you want your young ones listening to a younger audience listening to it. You know, make up your own. But you have been warned. So we're going to go into werewolf folklore because I've noticed I don't know if it's a push or whatever, but it just seems like a lot of people are trying to get away from what traditional werewolves were. You know, the whole virus thing?
Yeah.
You know, you get sick, a werewolf bites you, and that makes you a werewolf. That's Hollywood.
Yeah.
That's pure Hollywood, from what I understand. The original and then the curse where you could be cursed with it, you know, the curse of the werewolf.
Yeah.
Where like, I think like there was some of the movies back in like the 1930s or whatever, you know, the Lon Chaney stuff.
Yeah.
I think it was like a gypsy that cursed him or something because he did something to their land or something. That touches on the original folklore. The original folklore is based on some type of divinity or higher power cursing you. For example, the first one that I could find, and maybe there might be earlier ones than this, but what I could find in my cursory research was King Lycaon of Arcadia in Greek mythology. Apparently, this king invites Zeus, you know Zeus,
yeah,
who like changes into whoever,
yeah,
and seduces people's wives and murders people and curses people. And
Zeus.
Yeah, I don't know what this king was thinking, but he tried to trick Zeus by feeding him human flesh for dinner.
Oh, wow.
So Zeus said, "Oh, yeah? Well, I'll show you," and turned him into the first werewolf. In fact, Lycaon is where the term lycanthrope comes from.
Oh, yeah.
That's the etymology of that word.
Right.
And then later on, it was, you know, when you got into like the witch trials and stuff like that, there were people that had been bestowed upon, and we've talked about this before in other shows about shape-shifting, you know, like the skinwalkers and the La Lechuzas in Mexico, and now we have werewolves of European folklore. These are people that basically made pacts with like a higher power or some kind of dark forces to gain these abilities to shapeshift, to change their bodies.
Or with the devil.
With the devil, you know. But I mean, if people don't believe in that, whatever, you know.
With the darkness.
It's the negative side of whatever. You have to sell your soul. You know, like in the Navajo belief system, skinwalkers have to do like horrible things up to and including murdering one of their own family members in order to gain these powers. So that's the original werewolf folklore, is you're either cursed by a higher power or you beseech or ask a boon of a higher power and you're granted these abilities, these shape-shifting abilities. I just wanted to go over that ahead of time that way, because what Peter Stump said is that he made a deal with the devil. The devil gave him this girdle, this belt, and before he was arrested, he gave the belt, quote, back to the devil, unquote.
Okay.
And I guess they sent search parties out there looking for this belt, and they never found it. So,
Gotcha.
But he gave it back to the devil. So maybe that's why they didn't find it. I don't know.
Could be.
Now, and we talked about this a little bit, the region was already in an uproar, because I guess there was a 30 Years' War in the area, and there was also what was called the Cologne War, which lasted from 1583 to 1588. So the region was already on high alert, you know, troops coming in and out, stuff like this.
Yeah.
But as I said, there was livestock being killed and mutilated, and also people going missing, and they were found, killed, half-eaten, and mutilated for several years prior to Peter Stump being arrested. So now we get into the next red flag, which is, why does he have so many aliases? What's up with that?
Well, he stayed in the area, right?
Yeah.
The whole time? Yeah, that's different. Because I
weird.
I could see, like, if he went to a different country or something, and they spelled his name different.
Because of the different languages.
Right.
Yes, that's what I thought. No, he was born in Parat, which is near the town of Bedburg, and that's where he was executed, in Bedburg. So he was in that area his whole life. So how could he go by all these different... I mean, think about that right now, baby. If you knew somebody that had like 6 different aliases...
Yeah.
Wouldn't you be suspicious?
Yeah, of course I would.
Suspicious, you know?
Yeah.
And then I see, because I went along the lines of what you're thinking, like, well, maybe it's just, pronunciation, because people might have spoken different languages in the area and stuff. But I mean, some of these names aren't even close. Like, how do you get Peter from a bomb?
Yeah.
How do you get Stump from Griswold?
Yeah.
The last name,
Yeah.
Abel?
Yeah.
Compared to Peter? I mean, these are completely different names.
Did he change his religion and got a different name? I don't know.
How many times did he change his religion?
Yeah, that's true.
So...
Well, I mean, the last names seem the same.
No.
Yeah, Griswold.
Yeah, but Stube...
No, I know, but
Stump,
the Stubes and Stubbs, that's probably
Stumps,
just other ways of spelling
and then
it.
Stub is the other one.
Yeah. I don't know. That might be other ways of spelling it.
See, I could kind of see that, but it's... Maybe it's just a different spell. But I mean, how many... Who do you know spells their last name differently? Depending on what they're writing, or what they feel like. Oh, I'm just going to add an F.
Yeah, no, not.
You see what I mean?
Yeah,
even back then,
yeah.
you wanted to keep your name. That was your surname.
Yeah.
Why would you change it?
I don't know.
It's just odd, isn't it? Mm-hmm. But like I said, there might be evidence as to why.
Criminals, they change their names.
Yeah.
Don't they?
Yeah.
No.
And we're moving on to the next red flag. The first references to Peter Stump's trial, let's say his most damnable life, according to that book, was from a pamphlet. And it was found in London in 1590. And in this pamphlet, that's where it talked about how he was arrested, his confession, all this stuff, and then how he was executed. But it disappeared. The pamphlet disappeared in 1590, or somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And it wasn't seen since. That's why it wasn't until the 1900s, what is that, 300 and something years later, this occultist, I was going to say alchemist, this occultist found that book, the most damnable life and death of Stub Peter.
Right.
That's why it was like, everyone was like, crap, look at this. It wasn't a story. For 300 years, people were like, it's just a fairy tale.
Yeah, it's just a fairy tale.
It's just one of those legends.
Just a ghost story we tell.
Don't pay attention to that, Now, Catherine Trumpin was reportedly his adulterous lover. There were rumors throughout the community that's why they called her his mistress, because apparently he was messing around with her while he was still married. And then after his wife passed away, he continued to hang out with her or whatever.
Oh, okay.
And this is one of the reasons she was executed along with him, because she was, that she was being adulterous, or that was the accusations. So, on October 31st, 1589, baby. This is on the same day Peter Stump was executed. I don't know who found this. It was some historian or some researcher, I don't know. But apparently a man named Herman von Weinsberg made an entry into his diary, and the diary survived.
Wow.
Apparently because, and this is what it talked about. In the diary, it says a man named Peter Stump had been executed that day in Bedburg, Germany, by hot pincer, decapitation, and burning. And I have in parentheses no mention of the wheel, because the way Peter Stump was executed, hot pincers, they used red hot pincers to pull at him.
Ooh.
And removed
skin
stuff. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I shouldn't laugh because that's terrible, but I'm just laughing at your face because you're like horrified. We shouldn't laugh. It's terrible.
No, it's terrible.
Then he was broken on the wheel. Now, I didn't know what that meant, baby. So I looked it up.
Oh, yeah, that's no joke.
You're strapped to a wagon wheel by your midsection.
Yeah.
And in order for you to fit around the circumference of the wheel, they use the blunt head of an axe to break your limbs and then kind of tie you
Oh, goodness.
roundwise around this wheel.
That's terrible.
which I can't even imagine the agony and pain.
Yeah.
And then apparently they leave you like that for a while.
Oh.
So that you can sit there and all
Pass
that.
out.
Probably pass out and probably let you revive and...
Oh, that's terrible.
Yes, and then they decapitated him and then they burned him.
Wow.
Now, the women didn't fare much better. They were flayed, which I didn't know what that was. I thought flayed was like they take like a cat o' nine tails or a whip and like,
I'll whip you?
yeah.
Okay.
No, flayed is actually being skinned alive.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Oh, that's terrible.
Then they were strangled, and I looked at what that meant, and because I'm thinking strangled, like, hung. No, they actually took, like, it was like a garrote, like in the mafia movies.
Oh, yeah.
They get the wire and get them around the neck with the garrote.
Yeah.
That's how they did it.
Wow, that's
while
crazy.
they were tied or bound to a stake or
Oh,
whatever.
that's terrible.
And then after they were dead, they burned them along with Peter's body.
Was there a reason why they killed his daughter?
We're going to go into that.
Okay.
That's in the later on the red flags.
Okay.
Now, anyway, going back to this diary, Weinsberg used a vast network for collecting this information, and I guess he talked about this in the diary. He included eyewitnesses, oral retellings of the story, and then later letters written by friends and families that were abroad, and also the news network, just of, I guess, people of that were in the know,
Yeah.
Because apparently this Herman von Weinsberg was a counselor, which granted him access to more information than your average Joe. So he provided evidence for the true identity of Peter Stump, describing him as a farmer found 3 miles between Bedburg and Epperheide. He described Stump as a robber and said that he had been sleeping unlawfully with a woman for 25 years, as well as his own mother.
Whose mother? The guy, Weinsberg?
Peter was sleeping with his own mother.
Ooh, goodness.
Yes, incest going on.
Wow.
And that's also with his daughter. Incest with his daughter. That's one of the reasons the daughter was executed, because apparently that was the
That's
accusation.
terrible.
Yes. I don't know what was going on, baby.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. But I mean, people talk. People are going to notice things. Plus, you don't know if the wife was saying anything before she passed away. Lamenting to one of her neighbors, oh, my husband keeps running off with that floozy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We don't know. Maybe the daughter said something.
Yeah.
She was hanging out with other girls or boys her age and
Right.
let loose that, she was involved with her father. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
But anyway, and he also describes, Weinsberg also describes how Stump had used this belt to change his form at will. The diary tells of the deaths and cannibalization of 13 children between the ages of 6 and 7 years of age, with a special emphasis on the eating of the brains.
Oh, no.
And I was thinking back on this fact, baby, because they talked about the mutilization. Well, in order to consume that part of the body, that organ, or brain matter, you have to do something to the skull.
Yeah.
Which, if you can imagine seeing a child in that state,
Oh, gosh.
would just be
no.
so horrible.
It would be horrible.
That would be a memory that would be burned into your
Yeah,
brain
that'd
for
be
the rest of your
terrible.
life,
Yeah.
And that's why they talk about these mutilations of the bodies. And I'm trying to tone it down, but I mean, we
Yeah.
have to mention it.
Right.
As well as the deaths of 2 men and a woman. Now, the number of adults varies. I've seen as high as 4 men and 3 women, 3 men and 3 women, or 3 men and 2 women. So I'm not sure how that works out. But in this diary, he talks about 2 men and a woman and 13 kids. The 13 children never changes. It was always 13 children. Weinsberg tells the name of Peter's mother, who was Stupbielin. He actually named his mother because, remember, his accusation in the diary was that Peter was involved with his mom, with his
Right.
own mother.
Right.
So he named her. He
Right.
name-dropped.
Right.
And then with the consort, or his mistress, Tringen Strumpin, and that's Catherine Strumpin. Again, that might be the language
Yeah, could be.
barrier
Yeah,
because it's
could be.
German, and
Yeah.
or maybe she's not even German. She might be from Russia or
Right.
Greece or wherever.
Yeah, who knows?
So that pretty much covers the diary part of it. And there was a lot more, baby, but I didn't want to write everything in there because a lot of it's redundant.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was fascinating that they actually found a diary that was written the day he was executed. So now we have more proof of this shape-shifting going on.
Right.
Because this guy mentions it. But, baby, there's even more proof coming. It's crazy.
Okay.
Now, going on to the next red flag. The Malleus Maleficarum. You know what that is, right?
No, I don't. I'm not trying to say that.
Maleficarum. It meant the witch's hammer. It was the book that the Inquisitionists hunted, captured, tortured, and murdered, in my opinion, witches and werewolves back in the day. And
wait, is the book they use the book as directions, or is the book that they wrote after they did?
It was laid out describing what witches were, what werewolves were, and what you had to do in order to get them to confess.
Oh, okay.
It was how hundreds of people were killed.
Okay.
Murdered, basically.
Gotcha.
Because most of them were innocent. So anyway, the Malleus Malefactum stated that werewolves were just illusions cast by sorcerers, and that sorcerers, who were practitioners of magic, were the true culprits. So you're not running around looking for wolves according to the witch's hammer. You're looking for sorcerers, illusionists.
Oh, okay.
So that's how they were able to get these people without having any evidence that they're transforming into wolves. Oh, you're an illusionist, you're a sorcerer, so we're going to execute you. You see how that works?
Yeah, gotcha.
They don't even have to have any proof that you could turn into a werewolf. You just had to be able to be proven that you were a sorcerer or a witch, and that's it, you're dead. Now, the Malleus Maleficarum was condemned as false just 3 years after it was written. Now, the reason for the condemnation of the Malleus Maleficarum was because there was a heated debate back then about shape-shifting, because it was believed during these medieval times, it was believed in medieval canon law, only God could transform creatures. So basically it was the church saying, these people can't be using belts and, turning into these creatures because only God can do that. The devil can't do that. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but again, that was because of what that's why the Malleus Maleficarum was claiming they're not actually transforming, they're just casting illusions upon themselves.
Oh, okay.
Of course that doesn't explain how these people were being found just torn to shreds, and I mean, you need tooth and claw, and people know what an arrow wound looks like. They know what a knife wound looks like.
Yeah.
And they would know what claws and teeth look like.
Right.
And these people were torn to shreds by tooth and claw. So that's a heck of an illusion. Do you know what I'm saying? If you ask me. Yeah. Just saying. And I just thought that was fascinating that there was actually a debate over it. Back in the day over this canon law. But anyway, Peter was, even though he just laid it all out when they arrested him.
Yeah,
he just
to everything.
confessed, you got me.
Yeah.
This is what I did. Guilty as charged. Hang me. Kill me. Execute me. I deserve it. Basically.
Yeah.
Apparently, that wasn't good enough for some of them because they tortured him anyway.
Oh, wow.
And during torture, and I don't think this counts as his execution. I think this was before he was executed. So all that stuff they did to him during his execution was separate from this torture. But under torture, he confessed to murdering and partially devouring his own son.
Oh, wow.
So when his son was found out in the woods all mutilated and stuff, apparently he was like, oh, well, that's not one of the ones I killed. I killed all the other people except for that, my kid. But then after they tortured him, he said, all right, yeah, you got me. I killed my son too. Apparently, he lured his son out in the woods, and opportunity arose. They were alone. Nobody was around. He put on the belt and attacked his own son, killed his own son, and partially ate his own son.
Wow.
Which is terrible.
That is terrible.
Now we're moving on to the daughter, and her name was Sybil. She was executed alongside of him, and we already talked about this because she had a quote, lustful, incestuous relationship with her father. And they said she was extremely fair. Now, what that meant, fair, was like an old term to describe beauty. What they're saying is she was a really good-looking girl. Mm-hmm. Even though she was only 15 or 16, she was an attractive young woman,
Yeah.
They had this lustful relationship. I don't know if she was compliant with it or it was non-consensual, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or, a form of abuse. I mean, it had to be abuse because she was such a young girl. Oh, see, it says right here it was going on for 7 years. So if she was 16 or 17 at the time, that means it started when she was 9 or 10.
Yeah, that sounds like abuse.
That's abuse. But for some reason, they felt it necessary that she got executed right alongside the other two, which is terrible. She was just a young girl, you know?
Yeah.
But she was basically accused of being an accessory to the murders because apparently, and this is the main reason she was executed, because they said there's no way you couldn't have seen something. And I really thought about that. Well, I think it's one of the red flags, so let's just keep moving on. His mistress, now we're talking about the girlfriend.
Yeah.
Gossip told about this Catherine Trompin, who was also executed alongside Peter under the suspicion of being a she-wolf, who was helping Peter carry out his diabolical deeds. Basically an accessory to murder as well. But also because she was in an adulterous relationship with him for, like the diary stated, over 25 years.
Yeah.
So who knows what the evidence of that is? I don't know. Maybe they had some, I don't know. Or maybe they just accused her or they tortured her and she confessed to it. Who knows?
Right.
You know, who knows what went on back then, man.
Yeah.
Thank goodness her
Does
loss.
she have a belt too?
No.
Oh, okay.
But they just accused her of it.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So, and we already talked about how they were executed. By all, and this is the next red flag, by all accounts, Peter Stump confessed to most of his offenses only when threatened with torture. He was never tortured. They didn't touch him. They arrested him. They're being rough with him. All right, you're coming down to the station with us, you know.
Yeah.
And he just starts singing like a jaybird, man. All right, you got me. And he starts just laying it all out. And we already talked about that.
Right.
And I think that is a very strong point for us to discuss, baby, because the whole premise of what he confessed to, and you'll see, you know how I love to go to the chat rooms.
Yeah.
You'll see people talking about, they torture me. You confess to anything. All that werewolf stuff is nonsense. They don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Because he was never tortured. All of that stuff he confessed to, the killing of 13 children, the killing of 2 to 3 men, the killing of 2 to 4 women, or I think even just 1 woman in some cases. He confessed all that without them touching him. They never laid a finger on him. And he just laid it all out there, and we're going to go into why pretty quick.
He only did it after though torture was only when he confessed to his son.
Yes, okay. That's the only one that he confessed to under tortures. That's when he confessed to murdering his own son. So he wanted to keep that.
Yeah.
I guess he was ashamed of that or whatever.
Right.
And like I said, this is evidence that he wanted. I believe he was going to turn himself in, or he was like, all right, that's it. I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
And again, we'll discuss more in detail. But
okay.
I think some of the evidence is the fact that he confessed right when they captured him. And the other thing, he got rid of the belt prior to them arresting him. He had already gotten rid of it.
Right.
And, quote, given it back to the devil.
Right.
Doesn't that sound like somebody that's given up the wolf?
Yeah.
Pun intended. So the next red flag, I think we covered that one pretty good. He claimed that he had taken the girdle to a valley and, quote, given it back to the devil. We already talked about this. The valley and his property were thoroughly searched, but no belt was ever found. So they went through his house, they went through his barn, they went through everything.
Oh, well, the devil took it back.
That's what I'm saying. But the thing is there's no evidence that there was a belt. But why? Again, he confessed to that not being tortured.
Yeah.
Why would you claim to be some... I mean, maybe you could say he was trying to plead insanity or something. I don't think it worked like that back then.
No, I don't think so either.
I don't even think that was a plea.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
You know what I mean?
No, I don't think so.
Plus, the diary described him as a robber, accused him of being adulterous, accused him, he was being accused of sleeping with his own daughter, sleeping with his own mother, all these horrible things. That sounds like somebody who's involved with some dark stuff.
Dark, very dark stuff.
So the fact that he had this belt that he received from the devil and was transforming into this wolf-like creature and murdering, killing livestock and mutilating them and killing people and mutilating them kind of makes sense. So moving on to the next red flag. There had to be something allowing him to eat the raw flesh because it's very tough, honey. As humans, we don't have the teeth to tear at flesh.
Yeah.
Now, there might be some listeners going, well, I eat rare steaks. That's red meat, and I tear it up. I eat it like no problem. Well, you're using a knife, number one. And number two, the steak's already prepared.
Yeah.
It's been sliced. It's been trimmed.
It doesn't have skin on it.
the bones have probably been removed on most steaks. You know what I'm saying? You don't have all that to contend with when it's a full body. You have clothing to deal with. You have skin to deal with. You have muscle tissue, ligaments, tendons, all kinds of stuff. Again, not to get too vulgar, but with your bare teeth,
Yeah.
you're gonna, I mean, really, baby, if you bit somebody as hard as you could, how much damage would you do to them? I mean, you break the skin, definitely, but I mean, could you actually
Tear it out?
remove
Yeah, I don't
enough
know.
to half devour a body or to damage the skull to get to the brains?
Ooh, yeah. See, that's another thing. You kept talking about
So
the brains.
to me, that's evidence that there had to be something going on.
Yeah.
Either he had a weapon, which again, how are you going to hide a murder weapon?
Or he has some sharp teeth.
They searched his property. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They searched everything. I mean,
Yeah, you'd have to have something to open up the skull.
and to consume the bodies. You
Yeah.
can't. We're not built to eat raw flesh like that off of a carcass, off of
Yeah.
like if you kill a deer, to just get down there and just start gnawing at the deer's hide with your teeth. How much damage are you going to do to the deer?
Yeah, we don't
That's why we
Our
have
teeth aren't built like that.
right.
Yeah.
And our jaws, we don't have that bite radius.
Yeah.
That's why we use knives and stuff like that to
Right.
clean the deer and skin it and all that to get to the, and then we get the meat off of the bone that we want. So there had to be something. He had to have some type of health.
Hells. Yeah, hells is... Yeah.
He had to have some type of help
Yeah.
in order to consume the flesh. Plus, you're talking about blood, baby.
Yeah.
Lots of bloodshed.
Yeah.
You'd have it all over you.
Yeah.
You'd have it on your clothes, and if not on your clothes, on your skin. I mean, what do you carry around a bathtub to, pour over your head before you go home? People are going to see you walking through town to get to your farm.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that the shape-shifting kind of explains how he was able to get away with it for so long. You see what I'm saying? He
Yeah.
turns into a wolf, kills somebody, turns back into a human, puts his clothes back on, walks home.
Carries on. Yeah.
Wolf can clean its face,
Yeah.
lick itself clean, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And then he turns back into a human. You wouldn't even know.
Yeah.
You would never know. Moving on. Now the book, and this is that, the damnable life, miserable and damnable life of Stub Peter. It talks about a group of children that were playing out in a field. Because this is what I'm talking about, baby. It wasn't just the missing people, the mutilations and all that. People were seeing this thing.
Yeah.
They knew this thing was in the area.
Yeah.
This wolf thing, this large, some people describe it as a wolf creature or a large wolf or a shadowy wolf with some of the reports I saw.
Okay.
But apparently these kids were playing out in a field near the cattle, near where
Yeah.
the cattle were grazing.
Right.
And one of the girls found herself under attack of the wolf. It had grabbed her by the collar and was dragging her off. Well, she and the other children started screaming so loudly that the cattle, some of them were actually nursing young calves, so they're naturally more defensive,
Right.
that they, quote, they all together came running against the wolf with such force that he was presently compelled to let go his hold of the girl and to run away to escape the danger of their horns, by which means the child was preserved from death.
Wow, the cow saved her?
The cow saved her,
Wow,
yeah.
That's crazy.
And then again in the book, it talks about after the attack on the children, the people began to patrol the area in armed groups, looking for this beast. They also set baited traps for it. They brought out large packs of dogs so that the wolf would have no escape. But Peter said he was never in any danger, of course from the traps, because he's smart enough not to fall for a trap.
Yeah.
But he was never in danger of being harmed by patrols or the dogs, because he could just turn back into a human.
Wow, it's crazy.
So again, more evidence that he possibly was actually shapeshifting,
Yeah.
baby. Because how would these patrols and dogs not pick up his scent
Right.
if he was the culprit at the scene?
Right.
So he's the wolf, he kills somebody, leaves the body there, runs off, turns back into a human, and just strolls back home. The dogs are over there smelling the wolf, tracking it, rah, 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 and then,
yeah.
where'd the scent go?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
The dogs run around in circles looking for the scent trail. It's
Right.
gone.
Right.
Because there's no more wolf. Pretty weird, huh? So moving on. When I was talking earlier, baby, I thought he was just a serial killer. Until you find out why and how he was arrested. And this is that story.
Okay.
And I believe this was told in the book as well.
Okay.
Peter, as a wolf, went on to attack a man who was walking alone through the woods. He didn't know that the man was armed. Apparently he had a sword or an axe or something. I think he had a sword. And the man, as the wolf's lunging at him, he managed to chop off the wolf's left paw.
Oh, wow.
The wolf screamed in pain, started wailing in pain, and ran off. So the guy's like, wow, look at that massive paw, picks it up and puts it in his pack.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Goes home. Later he's telling the story, and he's telling the neighbors about this massive creature that he managed to wound.
Right.
And they're like, get out of here. You know, they didn't believe him.
Yeah.
So he went to retrieve the paw from his pack, and it was a human hand.
Oh, no. Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Again, more evidence that he was possibly shapeshift. I mean, unless this guy just lied and said that he chopped off somebody's hand at random, or Peter ran at him with a knife and he chopped his hand off. But why would the guy lie?
So did Peter have no hand?
Exactly.
Ooh.
That's how they arrested him, baby. And I think that's where... You remember that story, Cycle of the Werewolf, that Stephen King wrote?
Yeah.
I think that's where he got the idea. Remember the kid shoots the firework at the wolf and sticks it in the eye? And
Yeah.
the next day he sees the pastor and he's got a bandage over his eye, and that's how he figures out who the werewolf was. I think that's where Stephen King got his idea. Because here comes Peter Stubb after everybody finds out about this wolf.
Stubb?
Yeah. Stump. Yes.
Sorry, that's not nice. Sorry, that's not nice. That's not nice.
Yeah, you're distracting me, honey.
Sorry.
But basically, the story starts spreading across town how this guy wounded the creature and he has this human hand. And here comes Peter with this freshly cut off hand, bloody bandages, trying to stifle the blood and trying to stem the flow of bleeding and everything. And there he is. And he also described the left paw. In general, specifically said the left paw, and Peter was missing his left hand. Now, I saw some historian trying to argue, well, it could have been an old wound. What? It's such a dumb argument.
Yeah.
Assuming everybody in the area, remember, Peter grew up in that area.
Yeah.
If he was missing his hand prior, people would have known.
Noticed. That. Yeah.
I mean, somebody missing, and we talked about this on our own before we started recording. When somebody's missing something, 90% of the time, it's a finger.
Yeah.
Right? They got a stump of a thumb or a stump of a finger. Heck, I've known like 3 people in my life that had missing fingers. How often do you see somebody that's missing their entire hand?
Yeah.
Not a coincidental injury. So the idea that it was a coincidence or it was an old wound and everybody just blamed him, that's just nonsense. Everybody would have known had this guy been missing his hand for 50 years.
Right.
But we're going to get into that in an argument truth number 3, so I don't want to go too much more into that. So now we're left with 4 possible pieces of evidence that Peter was actually shapeshifting into some type of wolf creature or a werewolf. His confession, intimate knowledge of the murders, and I don't remember where I found that. I think that was in the book as well. Because some of the information that when he was confessing, he was describing how he killed these people, and the police hadn't released it to the public. He was giving them details that they were like, whoa. So they knew they had their man.
Yeah.
Because how could he know?
Right.
Unless he was there.
Right.
But then the belt, this claim that he had this belt, and then the 4th one was his missing hand. And that's the smoking gun, man.
Yeah, the missing
How do you
hand.
deny that?
Yeah.
Pretty hard to explain, you know what I'm saying? So, now this is according to the book. 2 men and one of the women were murdered the same day. They were all on a walk together. Stump reportedly called out to one of the men, and when he went over to see who it was, he transformed into the wolf and killed him. He butchered him, was the description.
Okay.
The second man, because the guy never came back, goes off to check on his friend, and that's when Peter killed him as well. And then the woman who's left by herself, she tried to run, but she was also dragged down and killed by him in wolf form. And 2 of the men's mangled remains were found in the woods, but the woman's body was never found. And I have it in quotes, never after. Her body was found never after, quote unquote. Yeah. And that's in Inarguable Truth number 1, so we're just going to leave it at that.
Okay.
The last line in the book, thus, gentle reader, have I set down the true discourse of this wicked man, Stubb Peter, which I desire to be a warning to all sorcerers and witches, which unlawfully follow their own devilish imagination to the utter ruin and destruction of their souls eternally. From which wicked and damnable practice I beseech God keep all good men, and from the cruelty of their own wicked hearts. Amen.
Inarguable truth number 1.
There were unexplained livestock mutilations and gruesome deaths at the time.
Inarguable truth number 2.
Since his torture was severe, some historians have theorized he was actually innocent.
Inarguable truth number 3.
Peter's severed hand had to be the smoking gun.
Inarguable truth number 4.
Peter confessed that he had received a girdle that would allow him to transform.
Inarguable truth number 5.
There is merit that purposeful shapeshifting is a more logical explanation than involuntary shapeshifting.
Inarguable truth number 6.
After Peter Stump's execution, all the strange mutilation in the region reportedly stopped.
Okay, so going back to inarguable truth number 1, which is there were unexplained livestock mutilations and gruesome deaths at the time. We already covered this, and we already kind of covered that he had killed and cannibalized 2 men, 13 children, and 3 women. And this might have been why the diary said only 1 woman, because 2 of those women were pregnant at the time, and they were never found.
Oh, wow.
But they were pregnant at the time, and I don't even want to tell you details about that murder.
No.
There were numerous brutal rapes that had occurred in the area. I didn't know that.
Well, that's terrible.
So not only were people going missing, not only people were being killed and mutilated and partially eaten, but women were getting brutalized.
Wow.
In the area at this time.
Did he admit to those?
I don't know. I didn't see any evidence of that, but that's what the accusation was.
That's interesting that it's 13 children.
Yes. And he had engaged, another report was that he had engaged in coupling with a succubus. And he had also engaged in the mutilation of cows, goats, and sheep. And we already discussed that.
Yeah.
He just didn't just kill them and partially eat them, baby. He just mutilated them.
Yeah.
And if he was innocent, he took credit for an awful lot of accurate deaths.
Well, he wasn't innocent.
Well, because some people argued that it was a political thing, and he was just a serial killer. There's no werewolf stuff going on here. How do you mutilate a cow with your bare hands and teeth, baby? Please explain that to me. Because if you're going to argue, well, he used an axe. Well, where did he hide the axe? You can't just hide a bloody axe.
Yeah.
Plus, people know what axe wounds look like.
Yeah.
They would know, because they butcher animals all the time, they would know what cuts look like. You know, when something's chopped.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's a different wound than something that's torn and bitten and chewed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he couldn't have been innocent, number 1. And number 2, he had too much intimate knowledge of the murders and of the mutilations of the animals.
Yeah.
There were claims his victims may have been more numerous because of people that were never found, and their deaths may have been attributed to the war or relocation. So people went missing, and they were like, oh, they just moved away because of the war.
Oh, yeah.
And then
who knows then?
Some of them that died, and they found them dead, they were like, oh, maybe they just got, because they found the remains that were just, decayed down to bones or whatever. They're like, oh, poor guy must have gotten killed in the war.
Yeah, it's like the 1500s, so you can't really tell if somebody...
Yeah, there was no forensics.
Yeah, no.
So he might have killed a lot more people. That's just what he confessed to.
Right.
Because remember, it was going on for years.
Yeah.
So I think that about covers inarguable truth number 1. Mm-hmm. Inarguable truth number 2. Since his torture was so severe... actually, that's wrong. I got that inarguable truth wrong. Making a correction right now. It should be his execution was so severe. Since his execution... This is inarguable truth number 2. Since his execution was severe... Some historians have theorized that he was actually innocent. If true, the method of execution for Catherine and Sybil had to contain evidence to warrant the brutality. Yeah. In other words, if he's a political foe, how do you justify killing this woman and his daughter, who was only 16 or 17 at the time?
Yeah.
Brutally executing them. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
It falls short. If you're just going to claim, well, he was actually innocent and he was being framed because... They claimed that he fought in the nearby war as a Protestant. I guess the war was like a religious war.
Yeah.
And he was on the side of the Protestants. So this theory is that the Catholics made a public spectacle in order to urge other Protestants in the area to convert.
Yeah.
And the claim is that the new Catholic Archbishop of Cologne and nearby aristocracies were in attendance of Stump's execution. But that is only mentioned in the London pamphlet. I could find it nowhere else. It wasn't in the book, and it wasn't in the diary. And if this guy, remember that...
Herman von Weinsberg.
Von Weinsberg, he was a councilman. If the Archbishop was coming to town, I think he would have mentioned that.
Yes.
Because he does mention local aristocracy, like local lords and stuff like that. Because remember, this had been going on for years, so when the word finally got out that they captured this werewolf, everybody came to see him be executed.
Murdering werewolf.
But there's no mention of the Archbishop. I don't know why I can't say that word. Archbishop attending, except in that pamphlet. It's the only place I could find it.
Interesting.
So to me, that argument kind of falls flat.
Yeah.
Because if he's not even there, then how is the Catholic Church making an example out of this guy just because he's a Protestant?
Right.
And I guess all the murders were just, and we'll go into that later because of the mic drop, the last, of course, inarguable truth.
Okay.
But the quote is in the book, quote, princes and peers were there. Princes and peers attended his execution. No mention of an archbishop. No mention of any people from, high-ranking Catholics being there.
Yeah, you would think they would say something like that.
Especially for how prominent religion was back then.
And especially with the war, with the Catholics and the Protestants fighting against each other,
Right, they would have made sure to mention it.
Of course they would have mentioned it.
I don't know. I think that one kind of falls short. Even if they were present, the clergymen, the case of the wolf beast reports had been going on in that region for years. Stump claimed that he was a werewolf for 25 years.
Wow.
Knowledge of the case was so widespread at the time of his execution that it would have been possible for the elites.
Yeah, especially...
They wanted to attend. They would have wanted to be there. It was a big thing.
Yeah.
Like I said, these murders and these mutilations and these missing people, and now we find out rapes had been, maybe we shouldn't say rape, violations.
Yeah.
Brutalizations.
Well, and also back then, and this could be all Hollywood too, but executions seemed like they were like a lot of people went to go watch them.
Public spectacle, right?
Yeah. So interesting.
I just think that if somebody like the Archbishop had been there, they would have mentioned it.
Yeah, it would have been noted.
So I think that argument, that's why I put the inarguable truth in there, because I think it kind of falls short.
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue against it directly, but to me that just sounds like, I don't know, it's just to me it's weak. So anyway, moving on to inarguable truth number 3, Peter's severed hand had to be the smoking gun. He was born in the area.
Right.
We already kind of covered this a little bit.
Yeah.
If his missing hand had been an old wound, like some people actually tried to argue, everybody would have known.
Yeah.
And that would have been inadmissible evidence to say, look, I cut off this wolf paw and it's a human hand, and he's missing his hand. And you can see it's like a decades-old wound, completely smooth on the end and stuff, compared to this bloody, hastily bandaged, dirty rag, freshly cut off hand.
Yeah, you're gonna be able to tell the difference between a
totally tell the difference. And everybody in the area that knew him would have known if he was missing his hand prior to this beast getting its hand cut, its paw cut off. So I think that's it. It had to be.
It would have called him one hand
the
Peter.
number one smoking gun, because how do you explain that?
Yeah.
He shot. You probably could have picked up the severed hand and went, "Hey, look, it fits." You know what I'm saying?
It fits.
It's his. It's Peter's hand. Why wouldn't they, baby? They didn't have forensics, but why wouldn't they do that?
Yeah, I guess.
It can't be anybody else's hand. It's his. Look, it even matches his skin tone.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We're talking within days of him cutting off his hand.
Right.
Actually, no, I think it was the same day that he got this wound.
Yeah.
Or the next day, they arrested him.
Yeah, it's still going to be bleeding.
Right. So moving on to inarguable truth number 4, which is Peter confessed that he had received the girdle belt that would allow him to transform. He claimed that he was a perverted fiend with an insatiable appetite for his daughter, his mistress, and all other women. He was also bloodthirsty and struggled daily to control his overwhelming urges to attack people when the opportunity presented itself. Kind of like a serial killer.
Yeah.
You know? But the thing is he claimed that the transformations lasted up to 7 hours. Then he automatically returned to his human form. But if he managed to remove the belt while in wolf beast or wolfman form, he would immediately change back into a human. That's kind of the idea I'm getting, is that if he wanted the belt to basically, if he wanted to come out of his form, he could just do it at will. You know what I mean? It was just instant. Okay, I'm a wolf, now I'm not. Then I have to put the belt back on. Okay, I'm a wolf again. Okay, now I'm not. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he did with those guys, because he was actually calling to them and bringing them over.
Right.
So,
calling them as a human.
plus, when he saw dogs coming, he'd just take the belt off and he was instantly a human again.
Yeah.
So, moving on to inarguable truth number 5. There is merit that quote-unquote purposeful shapeshifting is more logical than involuntary shapeshifting. And this goes back to the original opening when we were talking about, the myths and the legends of shapeshifting. Because if you're cursed, you don't have control.
Yeah.
Like in some movies, they wake up in the zoo
Yeah,
and they're
yeah,
naked.
yeah,
Oh my
yeah,
God,
yeah,
what did
yeah.
I do
What
last
did
night?
I do? Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
You would get captured very quickly. You would be suspected very quickly.
Yeah.
How are you going to explain what are you doing, in somebody's barn with a dead body laying next to you,
Yeah.
a murdered person? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So purposeful shapeshifting makes more sense if you're going to murder people. According to the book, Stump would see a woman or a child that he fancied, and he would wait for days for them to leave town or go out in the woods by themselves in order to attack them. So again, serial killer behavior.
Yeah.
Where serial killers will stalk their victims for
stalking,
days and
yeah.
wait for the opportunity.
Yeah. Stalking their prey.
Weird.
Wow,
But
that's crazy.
he reportedly confessed all this, including all that stuff where he was like a beast and couldn't control himself.
Yeah.
And if he saw a young girl or child alone in the fields, he would immediately transform and, quote, ravish them, unquote.
Wow.
So who knows
Yeah.
if that's just killing them or doing other stuff. Who knows? Just horrible. He was a terrible person, baby. And this is what he confessed to.
Right.
I think that pretty much covers inarguable truth number 5. So inarguable truth number 6, and of course this is the mic drop, because this is extremely hard to explain. I don't care who you are, especially the people that are saying, well, he was innocent. After Peter Stump's execution, all the strange mutilations in the region reportedly stopped. How do you explain that?
Yeah.
Flat out, mic drop, walk away.
Yeah.
After they killed him, all that
Everything
crazy
stopped.
stuff, all the weird rapes and all
Right.
the missing people and all the mutilated livestock and mutilated dead people and all that, all of it ceased.
Interesting.
Does that sound like evidence that he's innocent?
No.
I think not. It's hard to say that he wasn't involved somehow when all these reports just went away.
Yeah.
Right after he was executed. Everything I could find, I could find no other reports. Well, the stuff continued even after he was killed. Couldn't find anything like that.
Nothing,
Couldn't
huh?
find any evidence. So it appeared like it just stopped as soon as they captured him and as soon as they executed him. All of that stuff went away.
That's interesting.
So to me, that is definite evidence that he was the guilty party and that he was not innocent. It wasn't a political thing. He was involved somehow. Maybe it was his whole family doing it. Who knows? I mean, that's it. Well, let's get into the conclusions.
Yeah.
In conclusion, baby, what do you think about Bedford's werewolf?
Well, he was definitely guilty. I don't know if he was a shapeshifter, but he was definitely guilty. I think he got tired. I think he got tired of killing people, so that's why he turned himself in.
Interesting.
But I don't. But I can't say that he couldn't shapeshift because I don't know. I have never seen that. But there are stories that you hear about shapeshifting. But I do believe that he had some sort of evilness in him, and maybe. I don't know about the woman that he was with and his daughter. I don't know. It sounds, I don't know. That sounds like a lot of scary stuff going on in that household. So, but evilness was definitely it, and he definitely was responsible for those killings.
What do you think about the hand then?
Well, the hand, yeah, that's the only thing is like, if that man, I mean, it's very possible he could have been shapeshifter. I could tell you that he was probably possessed. He was probably possessed.
So
So,
my conclusion is first and foremost, I believe this is the best evidence of an actual werewolf that we have. Possibly this one and the Beast of Gevaudan, I think it's called. Mm-hmm. That happened in France, though. But this one I think is even better, because how do you explain the hand?
Yeah.
I mean, unless the guy's just telling tall tales, but why would he do that?
Yeah.
Why would he be bragging about fighting this beast?
That's true.
You know, and cutting off its paw, and oh yeah, I'll show you the paw, and then he's, wait a minute, where's the paw? And there's just a severed hand laying there. Plus, you could, like I said, you could take the severed hand and fit it to Peter's arm and show, yes, indeed, this is his hand.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's no, and so Peter's saying, I turned into a wolf and attacked this guy, and he chopped off my paw. And the guy's saying, I chopped off its paw, and when I put the paw in my backpack, now it's a hand. Both parties involved.
But wait. You never said that. Peter said that some man chopped off his hand?
Yeah.
Oh, well, hell, that's a little bit different.
You know, they asked him about, oh, what happened to your paw? What happened to your hand?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, he had intimate details
Wow.
of the attacks and the murders, baby. So...
Then, yeah, he had to be a shapeshifter.
Both of them were lying?
No.
I mean, does that make sense? I guess they could, you know, I mean, if you really want to, like, just be dismissive of it, I'm not going to argue. I mean, really, it's far-fetched. I know it's far-fetched, but that's what I believe. I think this is evidence of actual shape-shifting.
Wow.
And we've talked about the other, mythology and legends outside of Europe, away from the werewolves, of other shapeshifters.
Yeah, different types. Yeah.
So, I mean, if you don't want to believe, you don't want to believe, but whatever. But that's my theory. Another theory I had, though, and this is one of the only times I'm actually going to have multiple theories, and I kind of touched on it before. What if his entire family was involved?
They were all family of shapeshifters?
No, just throw out the shapeshifting.
Oh, okay.
Throw out the belt.
They were just all evil murderers?
They were all, because I couldn't find it in any of my cursory research now, but I remember, baby, and it might have just been off the cuff. It might have just been completely unvetted information that I remember reading years ago. But I remember there being reports that when they searched his property looking for the belt, they found evidence of body parts in the house, bones, etc. That would explain why the adult, the mistress and the daughter were accessories.
Oh, that
how are you going to explain the human femur in your living room? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When you know people are going missing and you don't say anything?
Yeah.
But again, I couldn't find any evidence of that during the cursory research. People. Yes, but I remember seeing that back when I did, when I originally heard the story, 20 plus years ago or whatever.
Scary.
But that to me explains why these two women who were basically accused of nothing, they would have had to have found evidence. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In order to be accused of being an accessory to murder, baby, there has to be evidence against you. You have to have knowledge. Yeah. Or withheld knowledge.
And maybe that's why he killed his son, because his son wouldn't go along with it.
Yeah, maybe his son was talking or was threatening to tell somebody, or he heard him talking to his friends. Oh, I know who the wolf is, and that's why he killed him. I don't know, baby. But something was going on.
Something evil.
So, that about does it.
Yeah, that was a good show. I never heard of the Peter Stone or Stoop or whatever his name is.
So go ahead.
All right, everybody get up on YouTube. Check us out on YouTube. Hope you enjoy listening. Hit that notification bell, subscribe, so that we can get more listeners, and we will bring you more stories and more stories.
And don't forget, if you have ideas, we've gotten a couple of comments already about some future shows, and, put them in the comments. Or if you have a short story you want to tell us, put them in the comments. Maybe we'll even talk about it on the show. We'll gather them all up and maybe discuss them one by one, the stories in the comments.
Or send us an email.
Or send us an email, right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.